Hello, beautiful souls out there. I hope you're able to get out in nature like Starlight was earlier today, and I hope that you all are getting out somewhere. And also, not only that, is to spend some time with your family, your loved ones. And if you are new to my YouTube channel, welcome. And you can find me on YouTube, and that is at Starlight, and that is Kathy with a K Dingman. Plus, you can give my videos a thumbs up. And you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Don't be afraid, don't be shy. Swing by and say hi to Starlight by leaving Starlight a message down below. Beep, beep, beep. And you can also share my videos with your family, your friends. Let me see. A Perry dog and an elf? You got an elf? I don't know where this elf came from, but yeah, sure, you could share my... You got an elf? I don't know where this elf came from, but yeah, sure, you could share my videos with an elf. And you can also check out my playlist and follow me on Instagram at 1995 Starlight, or on Facebook, and that is Kathy with a K Dingman Starlight. And so anyway, thank you to all of you who are here loving and supporting Starlight. Thank you for the ones that are out here being brave and you're giving Starlight a thumbs up, or you're being brave by leaving a comment down below. You know, there's people out there, I don't know, that could be afraid to leave a comment down below, because Starlight was one of those people years ago. Is, oh no, what is everybody going to think if I leave a comment down below? Don't worry about it. So, and thank you, all of you who share my videos. So anyway, today is, I'm going to talk to you about, this is for parents or grandparents, you know, or even people that don't have any kids, is things that, what to do to help out your children in the beginning of their life, to help them out, especially when they're already talking. This is the time to do these things, is when they start talking and forming sentences and going to school, and even all the way up until they're an adult. But it's better to do these things early, really early. Yes, early. Now, some of you have been with Starlight for a while now and has heard about, you know, doing I am affirmations, but this is going to be to help parents out with, you know, passing this down. Don't just do these things for yourself. This really would change the world in such a great way. Imagine if all the parents out in the world got their kids to do I am affirmations, you know, start their day off in a positive note, you know, without waking up, you know, to a cell phone or a computer, and just spent some time with God, you know, start your day off right, you know, in a positive way. Or like Starlight has been doing that now every morning, is spending time first thing when I wake up reading my Bible. And it's 3 chapters right now. It would be in Genesis, so I'm starting from the beginning, and this is what I used to do a long time ago. And then I read a verse in Proverbs and Psalms. So each day, that is what Starlight does, is I start my morning off that way. And so for those of you that believe in God and love God, you know, I know that you're out here somewhere on my YouTube channel. You might be a grandparent, a grandmother. Maybe the kids spend a night at your house. You know, this is a great way to build up things in your child's mind, to reprogram them and help them out in life. Because, you know, when kids grow up, depending on what kind of parents they have, you know, a kid might be, I'm afraid to do that. I can't do that. And where, instead of letting your child think that that's okay, is you can say, oh, but you can do this. And, you know, instead of letting them think that I'm afraid of this, now I'm afraid of that, I'm afraid, is that you can teach them about, like, the I am affirmations, is teach them that I am facing my fears. I am not afraid. You know, I am facing my fears. Like, you're afraid of a monster? Well, I'm not afraid of any monsters. You know, is I am safe, I am protected. You know, you can actually help your children out in so many ways by teaching them to pray like I did the other day, is I had to face my fear, but I'll tell you what, before I did it, is I had to pray about it. I had to pray, that I was going to be safe, and I'm going to, jump and nothing's going to happen to me. And I'll tell you what, it was like I was on stage. If you've seen that video, and it was about getting uncomfortable and facing your fears, and God set this whole thing up. And it's amazing because God is in all of us one way or another. You might not believe that, but, the man that was clapping, that was God using that man to clap. God sent me out at that particular place and tested me out to see. I could have gone just at a lake, or I could have gone and faced my fear and jump. And, and there was a lot of fears, like I mentioned in that video, is I had the fear of, wow, there's a lot of people, and wow, there's a lot of people. That means I would be wearing my bikini. And, like women and men go through this, is that they might look at the other women and like, wow, those women are much younger than I am, and so I want to go swimming. So no matter where you go, you're going to have to wear, some kind of swimwear. Some women, of course, they might wear shorts and a shirt because they don't want people to see their bodies, because they don't want to, there's different reasons why they don't want to, they might have been brought up that way. But fear stops us from a lot of things. So you really want to teach your kids off on the start. And this is where, this is how it all starts, is when they're little. When they're little, I'm afraid. I want to do that, but I'm afraid to do that. And then there's other times that they're like, you know what? I'm not afraid, and now I want to do that. So, but you can teach your kids. But parents, it's you. It really has a lot to do with you. How do you respond to your kids when they say they're afraid? Do you let them just say what they're going to say and that's it? Or do you inspire them and let them know is that, it's important for you to face your fear. It's scary, yes, but you're going to get through this. You can, and it takes time. So it is so vitally important when your kids are little is to, as long as the parents aren't being afraid for the child, because the parents got to be brave. When the parents can face their fears, they actually can teach the child to face their fears. Like, there's parents out there that, I'm afraid of snakes. I don't want to go out for a hiking trail because I'm afraid that a snake is going to get me. Now, Starlight, what? How many times have you gone out for a hike? More than I can count. I can't count. I started hiking as a kid where I grew up. But not every kid grows up in the middle of nowhere, where you have all this land to run around. And some kids might be brought up like that, but would they really go out by themselves at a young age, out in the middle of the woods, and just explore the whole land like Starlight did? So even when I was younger, I was afraid of the dark. But you know what? Because I had brothers, and I had other relatives around when I was growing up, I decided, you know what? I'm going to face my fears. That's why I like bugs today, is I knew with my brothers, the things that I went through as a girl and having brothers, is I'm like, you know what? I'm going to like bugs. I'm going to learn to like bugs. And that's what Starlight did. I learned to like snakes. I learned to like bugs. I learned to like, I was chasing bugs and, playing with bugs, playing with snakes at a very young age, because I knew if I didn't, my brothers were going to use that against me and try to scare the living tar out of me. So, it's so important to teach your kids, are they afraid of bugs? Take them somewhere and show them some cool things about bugs. Get them to watch some cool videos or something. There's, take them to a pet store, get them to look at the bugs and see what they're doing. Teach them the fun facts about bugs and what they do and what they can do and what you can learn from a bug. You can learn a lot of stuff from a bug. Starlight has made videos about that, or even you can learn things from an animal. So, you could correct your children, but you got to be that example to your children. If everywhere you go they see that you're afraid, well, then that's what you're going to pass down to your kids, is to be afraid of this. Oh, I'm afraid of that. And then they hear you saying, I'm afraid of that, and I'm afraid of this, and then they're like, oh, I guess it is okay to be afraid of things, but what we want to do is to break that fear. Because those little fears, there's things that seem like little and minor, is that later on, those are the things that are going to stop and block you from really achieving the things that you want, even the people that you want in your life. You want that girl, you want that guy, but you're afraid to go up to him and introduce yourself. Well, good luck. I have to say, as Starlight being a female, there is men out there who are afraid to go up to women, and then there's men up there, whoom, they have no problem going up to a female. They find an opportunity and they're quick. But see, now they might not be afraid to introduce themselves to a woman, but they have these other fears. So whatever your fear is, you got to learn to face those. And we all have them. There's fears that we have that we don't even know because we never got there yet. We never experienced it yet. But you want to teach your kids by showing them, they know that you're afraid of what? You're afraid of heights? Well, show them that you're going to go somewhere and do something, and you're going to break that fear. Like Starlight is not afraid of heights. Starlight, I don't know, I was like a tomboy growing up, having all these brothers, and we did some crazy stuff. I followed my brothers. I did a lot of things that they did, climbing on top of my dad's shed, jumping off, and eating my knees. You learn how to jump, when you don't stiffen up your legs good enough. So you learn some things by going through that. Like climbing up a tree to me, it was easy climbing up a tree. It was always seemed to be harder. Anytime I've ever gone up something, like get on top of a building or get up inside of a tree, Starlight used to climb up tree stands, even with a dress. It was always easier going up than going down. Everywhere, anything that I've ever tried, going up was easy. Going down was, but shit, you got to get down, right? So you could challenge yourself by getting yourself up in situations, things that you're afraid of, and you're like, well, I got up here, now I'm afraid to go back down, but guess what? You're going to have to get down. You're going to have to go to the bathroom. You're going to have to eat. You don't want to stay there. So you're kind of forced to face your fears when you're faced in situations like that. So, you want to teach your kids, like the I am affirmations, teach them that they're strong, build up their confidence by teaching them that they are brave. I am smart. I am stronger than what I'm going through. I am not afraid, to go out in the woods. I am facing my fears. I'm facing those sides, those things that I'm afraid of. I am not afraid of, even kids that get bullied in school. They have fear about going back to school because of certain things that are going on. Of course, Starlight, I'll tell you what, I had more fear going to school. Actually, let me think. I got to rephrase that. Well, the woods was my place, put it that way. Is being afraid when you're not safe, or you don't feel safe, is a different kind of fear. So there's fears that actually help us, that we have that fear in us. Sometimes fear saves our lives. It keeps us out of certain situations, and places that we really have no business being. So there's sometimes fear actually will save us, but a lot of that fear that we actually have, we're creating in our own headspace, creating that, I can't, jump in the water at the school, and you already know how to swim, but now you got to jump in the water. And when I was in school, they don't do these these days, is my swimming teacher, which I thought he was amazing, but he would actually have where we had to jump in the water. We already knew how to swim, and it was about jumping in, and yeah, it's scary. And then you got all these other kids, they're in the same spot, so I know, so eventually he would do a countdown, and if you didn't jump in that water, he would push you in that water. In these days, people like that would get sued for that. So, because the kid would go home, cry, he pushed me in the water. What? He pushed you in the water? Well, the kid's still alive, right? So there's a lot of parents out there that do this, that they really don't, they're hurting their children more by over being protected to their children. You got to really get your kids prepared for the real deal, the real world, and that is facing your fears. That's not, there's, and that really happens to any parent. It could be a new parent or a parent that already had, 3 kids. So it's a lot to do with how the parent is treating those kids, and you really do want to get them prepared for the real world. It's not a pretty world out there. There's a lot of things that they're going to have to deal with, and by getting them to always, be afraid of something and not facing that fear and not inspiring them, or building up confidence in them that they can do anything they want, and to help them to break those fears. The more that they break those fears, they're going to be superheroes later on. They'll be like, I'm not afraid of anything. It won't be just having it, having it on their jacket or just saying it. They're showing it, because the action speaks louder than words. So it's not about just saying I'm not afraid. It's actually facing those fears and facing it head on. There's so many things that people are afraid of, like going to school. Now, I am totally 100% against public school. So there's some reason, sometimes it's a good reason why to be afraid. If you're getting beat up in school or going through some stuff that's not really the right thing to go through. And there's a lot of things, there's a lot of good things in school, but there's a lot of bad things in school. Like one rotten apple spoils the whole bunch. And that's why a lot of schools end up figuring out, okay, we'll put all the rotten apples over here, and we'll put all the, so, your child might be in one of those schools, and that's what they did when my kids were growing up, is, they moved my daughter out of this one school, and they said, hey, she's, her mom's really doing the best she can. She doesn't have a car, and Heather, her daughter's doing really good here. We need to take her out of the school because she's in the really naughty school here, and we're going to put her in this other school where the kids are better behaved, because they know that one rotten apple could spoil the whole entire bunch. So you got to get your kids to face their fears and do the I am affirmations, and pray, build their confidence. If they're afraid to do something, say, I pray to God. Teach them to pray to God and ask for help. I pray that God, that you protect me, help me to face what I'm going through right now. Please give me the confidence and the courage to do what I'm doing here, because all these kids, they got to learn, riding a bike can be scary. What are you going to do with your child? It's like, oh, you're too scared. Okay, I guess you'll never ride a bike. Now you're, 12 years old and still don't know how to ride a bike. So you don't want to really be too gentle with your children where it's going to mess them up for later on. You got to face those fears with your children and build up their confidence. It does take time. So anyway, I love you, and like I said, this is for anyone. Even if you don't have any kids, this is really good for you, because when you start off having your kids, you want to build up their confidence. You want them to believe, and build up everything about themselves and let them know that they are smart. So hopefully you're that parent that doesn't call your child names, or your grandchildren names. Hopefully you're that kind of parent that is building up their self-confidence and all that. But if you aren't doing that yourself, it would be really complicated to do that for your child. So it's so important that you do this for yourself, is to build up confidence, even pray about stuff before you face, certain fears, and ask God. But you got to have that relationship with God. You got to really spend time with God so you can build up a good relationship with God. So your faith is in God, in all things. Wait, I'm trying to remember these verses. I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. So if you build up that relationship with God, you're like, you know what? I can do this because God's going to help me through this. That's how I was able to face my fear. And so, even when I drive every day, I always pray. And that's how I get from point A to point B, is because I pray. I don't go behind my, steering wheel without praying. I don't just pray for myself, but I pray for others to not just protect me, but everyone else. So I love you so much. So these things will really help not only the parents, but your children, because, you're going to build them up and help them to be strong and help them not to be afraid, help them to face their fears, and they will be able to handle all kinds of stuff later on. You'll be giving them the tools that they need to be able to have successful lives and happy lives by letting that fear go and facing their fears that they have. I love you so much. This is Starlight. You can give this video a thumbs up. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Plus, you can leave me a message down below. Beep, beep, beep. And you could share these videos with your family or friends. A tiger or a bear? Roar! And also, you could check out my playlist and that is at Instagram at 1995 Starlight, or on Facebook, and that is Kathy with a K Dingman Starlight. I love you all. So you gotta face your fears, adults, parents, and then teach that to your kids. Show them, what, you're afraid of that. I'm afraid of this weekend. Let's go out and we're gonna face our fears. I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna face my fear. You could pray and ask for help. Show your child that, what, I can do this. And then they're like, oh, wow, you did it. You said all this time that you were afraid of something, but you're doing it. You're not afraid anymore. So, and the more you do that, the better you'll get. After a while, you're like, I can't believe it. All that time, I was afraid. And, because we're creating that fear in our own imagination. So I love you so much. This is Starlight and Namaste. This is Starlight, love, light, and peace.